Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing a no contact love reading. There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Shungite. Group 2 is the Emerald. And group 3 is the Purple Fluorite. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Shungite. So let's start by taking a look at the person that you are in a no contact situation with, their thoughts and feelings about you and the state of this connection. Okay, so we have victory, indecision, and woman holding a heart. So there's a sense here that this person may be kind of on the fence as far as if they should reach out to you, if the connection is still salvageable, kind of time and space having given them the opportunity to reflect on their behavior in the past towards you in the connection, maybe taking you for granted or not making more of an effort to demonstrate change on their part or to move towards you with some kind of an apology, some kind of confession of feelings, expressions of love that they either might have withheld in the past or that they had been sort of afraid to be completely transparent about. And there's a sense of them really reflecting on the ways in which they feel very empowered and strengthened within your presence, kind of like their best self, or encouraged to embrace whatever version of them that they are currently sort of inhabiting to the utmost. There's a sense that with you, this person feels a lack of self-criticism, which might be something very different from how they feel ordinarily in their own energy, or as might have been the case in previous connections that they have been in prior to this situation with you, or even people that they subsequently have dated in the aftermath of the two of you going into separation. And so there's a sense of a deep appreciation that has come about in the time and space between the two of you, and a sense of, at this point in time, really sitting in that emotional space within. What can I give to this person that demonstrates that I am invested in change for the better, in doing what is necessary to bridge any distance or gap between the two of you, to make amends, to even demonstrate that they have taken to heart in some way the importance of change that might be necessary on their part, even in terms of just sitting in a space of vulnerability and compassion for themselves as kind of a first ingredient, a first step to being able to provide something more to you further down the road. But it definitely feels like you might have felt a surge in their energy, or kind of like a hot cold energy or vibe from them, in the sense of they're dipping very deeply, it feels like, into their own shadow, kind of ways in which they have not necessarily loved themselves to the utmost, in the sense of accepting themselves for the polarities of highs and lows that they have gone through, or that they go through, that they've demonstrated with you. And with this is a sense of feeling a surge towards you, almost like breakthrough energy, a confidence which kind of emerges at the idea that the situation is still salvageable, or that they start to become more comfortable about the nature of their feelings for you, the depth and intensity of these feelings, coupled with periods of time, it feels like, where they're going deeply within to reflect kind of what were my shortcomings up to this point in time, or even kind of more broadly than that, what have been my shortcomings in terms of previous relationships that have crumbled or fallen apart because I've failed to accept myself fully, and therefore what was I bringing to the table except for kind of fractured or fragmented energy. So a bit of soul searching going on at this point in time, it feels like, with this person in regards to you, and also in regards to kind of themselves. How can they hold themselves in a closer energy in order to be able to provide something or present something to you that demonstrates an ability, a willingness, an enthusiasm to try a different approach in this situation, try something different than they've utilized in other connections in their past, or just a change in their relationship with themselves, which then reflects as different energy that they're able to infuse or invest in sort of a rebuilding or a renewal with you. So let's take a look at some blocks, obstacles, challenges, or fears that they're dealing with at this point in time. This can be personally or in regards to the connection itself. Okay, we have candles, magic, watchtower of the west, autumn, and cloak, concealment. So this is speaking about some deep shadow work and introspection that this person is doing at this time. It feels like there's a sense of starting to put together the pieces in terms of what has fallen apart or failed to be satisfactory to the two of you in this situation, that might have driven a wedge in between the two of you, caused the no contact or separation, or it's just kind of the point that they're at in their personal journey that has taken place since you've parted ways, that ties into like patterns within themselves, maybe things stemming from inner childhood wounds, or just a repeating series of themes or types of people that they typically have kind of magnetized in or been drawn toward. There's a sense of starting to recognize that they may have given and received love in the past, or had an understanding of what that's like, generated from a place of wounding. So what they had associated with like their type, what they needed, what was resonating with them in the past, that might have been something that you presented as a different energy. You presented as something maybe a healthier or higher vibrational version of what they were accustomed to, and they could have run from you in the situation because of that, because it didn't align completely with kind of what the shadow or the wounds within them were processing as like normal or regular, or were resonating with, even in a space of kind of a lower vibration or an energy of lack in a way. It's almost like they've transcended all of that and are starting to really either release the wounds of the past, release the idea that what they were looking for or seeking, what they thought they wanted or needed, maybe not was necessarily in their best or highest interest, but was just kind of a reflection of a repeating series of patterns, kind of ending up with the same results, even when trying sort of different approaches with, it feels like other people, past romances, tracing that all the way back to like inner childhood wounds, aspects of where they sort of haven't embraced themselves fully, the light and shadow polarity, maybe leaning too much into like a false light paradigm of, just overlooking some of the deeper core wounds and trying to kind of will themselves to look on the bright side even when they weren't feeling their best. All of that kind of tying into, it feels like, ways in which they have seen or are starting to recognize that they didn't give you the opportunity to love them fully. They didn't give you the opportunity to receive the love that they had in totality, or that they're capable of in totality, because there's almost a sense of like shame or trying to hide or run away from some of these deeper wounds or patterns or things that were very hard to admit within themselves, that were kind of, just sort of trying different things, but ending up in the same situation again and again, kind of building things up only only to watch them wash away and becoming very frustrated, it feels like, with not being able to break through cycles. And it feels like whenever you encountered this person, they were kind of in the midst of this bigger unconscious kind of pattern that had been going on within their life. But it feels like this is somebody who's taken a different approach. They've taken more of a proactive approach, or they're having a lot more compassion for themselves. Not necessarily taking that full blame and responsibility onto themselves either, but sort of looking at, how are these ways in which I talk to myself? How are these ways in which I'm comfortable giving love or uncomfortable receiving love? How are these all sort of remnants of wounds within that I didn't necessarily inflict upon myself, and yet I'm stuck dealing with the aftermath of that? Or it's informed the choices of what's felt safe, what's felt comfortable, what I've gravitated toward, what I've invited into my life. So it feels like this person's kind of in the brink of some sort of profound metamorphosis and really making friends with that shadow aspect within, taking an honest look at this, and at least from that place, maybe having something more to offer in terms of like a reconciliation, or moving this connection out of like no contact or distance and silence into something that's a little closer, something where there's a little more communication, because they're becoming more self-aware. So let's take a look at their potential actions towards you. Okay, we have love, potential, and simplicity. So it feels like the biggest action that this person's going to take towards you, kind of in the near future, in the radius of whenever you watch this reading, is to invest more deeply in kind of traversing that shadow within themselves, looking in sort of a non-biased way at what it is that they find, taking an honest inventory, sort of flipping the script on anywhere where they might have been very forgiving towards people that had hurt them, or had taken on a lot of blame and responsibility for sort of their shortcomings in connections, rather than looking at it almost about wounds within themselves or aspects within the shadow that might have felt comfortable, or that it was normal, it was resonant to deal with kind of people or situations, or even just maintain a version of themselves that in some way harbored lack or a sense of disappointment, or like good things don't last, or that they themselves were kind of the obstacle or the challenge or the problem. They were difficult to love. It was difficult to maintain relations with them. Even if that was like actually or literally the case, it feels to be something that was deeply embedded in kind of some flawed programming, or people that just were not equipped to love them properly, were sort of projecting their own wounds upon this person. This can, again, relate to like inner child wounds, or even people that they dealt with, kind of other romantic relationships, people with unprocessed wounds within themselves that didn't do the shadow work, or just kind of skim the surface but didn't really get down into the depths. And so it feels like this person is going to transcend further than they've gone up to this point, further than most go, further than you would imagine that they were even capable of, or that they would have an interest in investing in themselves in this way. And all of that kind of adds in, or a motivation with that is to make some sort of change in terms of how they're accepting themselves, for themselves first and foremost. But there's also an understanding of, on the other side of this quest or this journey, where I'm giving myself a break. I'm not going to be as hard on myself. I'm releasing and allowing to kind of just flow away from me all of these kind of belief systems and these patterns, maybe even coping mechanisms, or ways in which they'd kind of come to understand their psychological makeup even up to this point in time. It's a sense of being willing to transcend all of that as an investment within themselves first and foremost, kind of saving themselves rather than waiting to be saved or helped by another person. This is the essence of, the more I invest in me, the more that I can invest in something with you further down the road. So it's almost the sense of, as they come closer to home within themselves, they're able to kind of show up in a more loving way towards you. This can relate as well to kind of loving thoughts, telepathy that's going on, energies that you're feeling from this person. There may be a lot more clarity with that. There may be a lot more strength or consistency with that, because they're really learning to kind of accept this work in progress version of themselves in a more wholehearted way than had been the case in the past. So it is progress towards you by making progress more deeply into like embracing themselves for themselves first and foremost, kind of filling their own cup in order to be able to have something reciprocal, substantial, and authentic to give in return. So let me get a little bit of advice for you, and then I'll move on into some message cards and close the reading out with some initials. Okay, we have dignity. Take pride in yourself and all that you have become. Feel honored by your choices, achievements, and actions. So there's a sense here of almost allowing this person the time and space to continue along whatever this progression or journey is into the nature of their own shadow. You know, kind of starting to inventory whatever it is that they've learned, that they've come to believe that has been an effective practice for them at this point in time in terms of you know, maintaining their wellness and their well-being. Maybe this is somebody who hasn't even ever done shadow work before, and so it can kind of be a rocky journey, kind of venturing into that territory for the first time. And there's a sense of just allowing them to continue to progress along that at their own pace without even sort of putting the energetic pressure, the energy of worry that could be directed towards them and might almost just make a sense of discomfort within you that just prolongs or makes very uncomfortable what feels to be an organic process. This is almost someone who might be going through a dark night of the soul or has been in a dark night of the soul and is becoming very proactive with sort of harnessing that shadow, and rather than being just kind of tossed about or held at like a rock bottom place emotionally within themselves, there's a sense of them looking around, kind of scavenging. What can I find here? How can I repurpose what it is that I'm feeling? If the methods and approaches up to this point in time have left me feeling disempowered, what can I do in order to sort of flip the script on that and turn this pain into purpose? And so in the meantime, what you can also do is perhaps even follow this person's lead or example and really take that time to sort of go deeply within and, you know, reflect on kind of your experiences with this individual, anything that's been like triggered or brought to the surface, at the idea even that it may be a longer period of time of like distance or disconnect. There may be an intensification of sort of what you're feeling or experiencing energetically, the exchange back and forth. But in terms of like actual physical manifestation of this person in your reality, ready to love you in the way that you need to be and that they need to, you know, and need to be in kind as well. This might be something that is not necessarily in divine timing, but it feels to be something that's almost a slower process. It's a slower journey. But what happens on the other side is a layer of spiritual enrichment that is invaluable to both you and them as individuals. And then when you're coming together, you can create something of more form, substance, and durability than has been the case between you in the past or in other connections that you've had independent of one another. So it's really, this time and space feels like something that you can choose to sort of sit in in a place of discomfort, or use this time to your advantage, just like this person is using this time to their advantage. And to understand that you're working in tandem with one another, even if there's a sense of, you know, physically you're not in contact, or there's distance in that sense. You're both kind of moving and progressing along this path towards the intention of wanting to reconnect, wanting to come back together, wanting to have something more substantial than has been the case in the past. So let's see what this person would tell you from their higher self if they could. Okay, and they say, wait for me. So there's a confirmation that they do intend to reconnect with you, to contact you on the other side of whatever this quest is, this process of kind of wrangling in their shadow and doing something different than has been their approach with themselves, or even with the idea of like shadow work and wellness up to this point in time. They also say, I'm sending you telepathic messages. So there's that confirmation that there may be communication in that sense, them intentionally kind of sending you those energies, little progress reports or postcards, you know, from the ethers, from deeply within the shadow, that signify kind of these breakthrough moments where it's almost their way of letting you know something has shifted energetically. There's a lightness. The load feels a little less daunting, or they've made some kind of progress and clarity where rather than running or recoiling from the nature of the interaction, they're actually starting to progress towards you almost from the inside out. They also say, I don't care what people think anymore. So this, again, is that confirmation of kind of going back over all sorts of interpersonal relationships, romances, you know, childhood experiences, platonic experiences, friendships, and kind of looking at everything with a very fine microscope, and taking the time to really sort of evaluate and inventory, were these people that I was calling in my world and into my reality, were these individuals I allowed in so close to wound me, you know, that it kind of created a guardedness in terms of moving forward into other connections. Were these things really in accordance with my highest good? Was what I was trying to manifest or call in for myself, or remaining very tethered or attached to? Was this a reflection of kind of the healed and well and self-accepting version of me? Or was this just something that was kind of the wound or the shadow within calling in things which sort of were the self-fulfilling prophecy, or resonated with that place of eventual lack and crumbling? So it feels like this person's going really deep. There's no stone that's being left unturned in this case, and it feels like they're being very almost, they're dealing with emotional things, but it feels like something where they're being very unemotional in that capacity. They're not looking at people and situations from a place of, I've known them for a while, or they've done this or that for me. It's almost like, loyalty aside, what is the exchange? What are the feelings that kind of come up within me that are products or generated through dealing with these individuals, or that are kind of the souvenirs or the keepsakes that I still have in the aftermath of these individuals kind of touching upon my life, or interacting with them in a way. So some deep shadow work at this point in time that they're doing. They also say, I want to talk to you. So another confirmation of wanting to reach out, wanting to speak, but it feels like they might even be holding themselves back. And kind of the main intention of that is to dig a little bit deeper within, to make sure that kind of the next approach towards you, or breaking that silence between you, that there's something substantial that they have to offer in terms of being more regulated by way of self-acceptance within them, rather than kind of having a lot of churning chaos, or you know, not having really looked at or self-identified some of those wounds, obstacles that had caused difficulties, or static between the two of you in the past. It feels like they're being very, very proactive, and almost making sure that they're well aware of what those triggers are within, so that they're not confusing steps into the unknown in terms of intimacy between the two of you as like red flags that they should run from, which might have been the case in the past that caused some turbulence or even disconnect between you. And they also say, I'm overthinking everything. So it feels that that's not necessarily a bad thing at this point in time. They're going back through and evaluating belief systems, teachings they might have resonated with, you know, kind of conclusions that they had come towards, or even just kind of looking at self-talk, the inner critic, and starting to really utilize that to their benefit, utilizing that to their advantage, rather than giving people so much the benefit of the doubt, you know, or almost pedestalizing certain individuals. It's almost the sense of everybody's now on the equal playing field, and they're really kind of putting themselves first for the first time ever for a lot of people. It feels like, kind of, how does this serve me? Is this something which diminishes my ability to live my best life and accept myself in every season of that life? Or is this something which has made me feel like I need to minimize who I am, like I constantly need to be changing, or that efforts are not good enough? So they're putting a lot of thought into whatever it is that they're involved with right now as far as that shadow work. And they also say, you hit me out of nowhere. So this speaks to a deep sense of investment in trying to come forth towards you with some degree of like personal growth and transformation that they have actively and kind of persistently engaged in at this point in time, so that it increases the odds of like a better result between the two of you than it's been the case in the past, and also increases the odds of a better result between the two of you than has been the case in other romantic relationships or other interpersonal relationships that they've had. So these initials can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got W, W, K, X, R, B, G, V, F, G, O, U, C, N, and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. Chose the emerald. So let's start with the person that you are watching this reading for, that you're in a no contact situation with. What are their thoughts and feelings about you and the state of the connection right now? We have Victory, Goddess of the Moon, and the World. So this person could definitely be watching you from afar, kind of watching you from the shadows, taking in and absorbing your energy, which they feel to be very healing. There's a sense of recognizing you as a sacred space, as a safe space in which they are able to be kind of the utmost expression of their most authentic self, which it feels like is something that is a struggle for them usually and in other companies. So it might even be that people that they're spending time with, or reflecting on other romances that they've had, there's a sense of, I could never really be myself with those people. I always had to posture. I always had to put on a mask. But with you, even in my darkest days and my worst moments, there was a sense of understanding, a sense of being almost kindred spirits in that capacity, which in the past it feels like that level and layer of vulnerability might have been very shocking or frightening to them, almost a sense of seeing within you kind of a mirror of all the things that they had a hard time accepting about themselves, or that they were used to running from, or having to kind of feel shame about and be compelled to sort of work on or overcompensate for or make up for in some sort of way. But they're now starting to understand and see, and maybe even the time and distance has sort of enhanced this, that almost the gulf that now exists between the two of you is this sacred space in which they can really take the time to look at that reflection, to look in that mirror without the pressure to perform, without the pressure to kind of fully accept themselves or run from themselves. It's only kind of them in their own reflection at this point in time. And with the energy of sort of watching you from afar, it can really relate to ways in which they're sort of taking in subtleties about who you are, anything that you've been working on within yourself that has created marked change within your energy, within your appearance, within like your priorities and the way in which you're living your life. So investment within self, self-care, healing journey, spirituality, wellness, all of that. It feels like they are trying to almost emulate that same vibration, that same current. So if you post things on social media about that, it might even be that they're taking in that information, taking notes about that, and trying to sort of apply that to their own life in a way. With it feels like success, the energy of victory, and then there's also a lot of gratitude for sort of leading in this capacity, and allowing them, it feels like, the time and space to sort of go through a process of starting to become more comfortable with deeper emotions, or even kind of their fear of emotions and fear of vulnerability, which might have really presented as an obstacle between the two of you in the past. And so this is a sense of them kind of looking at you, looking at the situation with a gratitude that they couldn't have when they were more deeply connected with you, when it was more one-on-one. It was almost too close to be able to see the true value and measure that you add or you contribute to their existence, which again is this kind of safe space, or this receiving sort of energy that brings with it a sense of allowance. Even if you like set boundaries, or you've had to kind of disconnect from the situation and really just focus on yourself because there's not been progression forward, there's a sense of them really seeing that this is a gift in and of itself, because it's giving them the silence being almost a tranquil space in which they can run through the full range of their emotions, frustration within themselves, acceptance for certain things that they find, elements that they're still avoiding that might be a little more tender to kind of address directly. And there's a sense of almost connecting with you energetically, feeling this tether to you, that as much as they might be flailing at this point in time, feeling kind of isolated and not really with anyone to kind of understand them, nobody to express compassion, no one to even really talk to about these sort of things. There's a sense of feeling that bond with you even across the distance, where they're able to sort of hold space for themselves in a way that they're not accustomed to, or that they hadn't truly appreciated, was sort of one of the benefits or the perks of connecting with you, of the energy exchange between the two of you, of what you've really awakened, or that you template for this person in a profound way. So let's take a look at some of those blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they're dealing with right now. Okay, so we have ancestors, remembrance, water, cleansing, and staff, stability. So there's a sense here that this person may have had like anger issues, or kind of a lot of self-directed hate or anger even, that had limited or restricted the ways in which they viewed themselves as like worthy and deserving of love, and the nature of the love that they brought to the table might have been something that almost kind of had a contingency plan of being destructive, kind of like a belief that could have been implanted within them through their experience or maybe upbringing and culture, kind of the idea of good things don't last. And so this could have been something where they were always kind of questioning the nature of the connection, your intentions, who they are as a person, or who they were as a person, if they were even deserving and worthy of kind of the sacred space that was provided for them to sort of grow and evolve and express even kind of the most authentic layer of love that they were capable of at one particular point in time. This can definitely be somebody who's kind of diving in deep to those wounds and those patterns, maybe kind of like generational curses and things like that, doing some healing in that capacity. It feels like are starting to understand that as much as they might have tried to live perhaps even a different kind of life than what they grew up with, what they had seen other people around them, that might have had like toxic or damaging relationships, that they ended up kind of living in this self-fulfilling prophecy, which has led to, it feels like, a lot of surfacing of frustrations within themselves, or even the ways in which, again, that kind of self-loathing or self-hatred even manifested as almost somebody who could have been prone to self-sabotage, or kind of creating chaos within the serenity that could have existed between the two of you, or even inside of themselves in the past. It feels like this person might have had a really hard time being at peace within themselves, like didn't trust that element or layer of peace, kind of always on the alert, always on guard, and kind of waiting for things to kind of turn upside down. So it could be dealing with some PTSD also, as kind of a major aspect of what's happening in kind of this distance between the two of you. And it feels to be something that it's almost getting in touch with the nature of their feelings, both the chaotic feelings and that longing for peace, in a way that they hadn't been able to successfully do in the past, and that might even be kind of wobbly at this particular point in time also. Sort of treading into uncharted waters, maybe even without kind of a map or a structure in place of sort of how to deal with these things, and kind of just taking them as they come. For every sort of breakthrough that they have, there might be a lot that kind of bubbles to the surface that it feels like is helping this person understand whatever they might have chalked up to like their issues or problems with their personality, that it runs a lot deeper than that. It might have even just been kind of pain passed along through families, generation after generation. And then they stand at this kind of threshold of being the person to kind of say no more, face those fears, face that pain head on or from a different angle, and to start to do something about it, rather than kind of just carrying that along as like an unconscious belief that perhaps they're difficult to love, or they always kind of create disaster within beautiful situations. So let's take a look at their possible actions towards you. Okay, we have thriving, illumination, and freedom. So for some of you, you may hear from this person. They may even drop like little hints or suggestions, maybe things that start to pop up on their social media that are reflective of kind of a change within themselves, a change in their priorities, a change in like their mood or their outlook, that can be evidence of someone who's being very proactive at this point in time, in not just letting the status quo continue on in terms of any kind of like pent-up frustration or anger. There almost might be like a softening within them that really demonstrates a growth mindset or efforts towards that. And so that can even speak to like an olive branch that is extended towards you, or something even just energetically speaking, where it feels a little less tense between the two of you, and you might start to experience kind of the energy of flow, where there's not so much of a hot and cold and like an intense, only to have things drop off very suddenly, but that there's a consistency, which can really, again, kind of tie into the fact that they are seeing you, viewing you, feeling your energy as like a tether or a lifeline at this point in time, while they're looking, it feels like, in the mirror in a way that they haven't before, that they're now starting to understand is very necessary. And it's almost like holding on to you so that they don't run away from themselves. So this isn't a matter of like pulling on your energy or siphoning energy. It's more of just a sense of, almost without saying as much in words, it's almost like this person kind of asking you to brace them for impact, while they sort of confront some things about themselves, or look at themselves in a fresh way, or kind of what has led to sort of the construction of the personality that they have called their own, both the positive and kind of negative aspects of that, because it feels like this is somebody who's looking for a different way to view themselves, wanting to see truth beyond the illusions. And it feels like something that they're endeavoring very quietly, very privately. This may be somebody who's, engaging in like self-help or journaling, or doesn't really feel like the energies of like talking to anyone about this, or being very vocal about it, but it's just kind of an energy of an introspection, sitting where they may typically be prone to sort of bolt or run in the opposite direction. And with that is almost the essence of kind of reaching for you as a way to kind of steady them while they acclimate to the process of facing some uncomfortable things about themselves that can definitely help to improve anything that they bring forward to you. It may even be a level of truth, honesty, and transparency that was kind of lacking in the past, either in terms of, like, again, things they post on social media, things you might hear through the grapevine as far as what they're involved in, changes within their lifestyle or habits or behaviors that can reflect positive waves and momentum, or anything that they present to you that is almost more direct than has been the case in the past. It might even be just kind of little bits of conversation back and forth without kind of things to infer, without the need to sort of read between the lines, but that's just very clear cut, evidenced of kind of progress that they have made toward facing some difficult things within themselves. And it feels like exacting that into the energy of like apology in the form of changed behavior, a different version of them that sort of is starting to surface and kind of rise out of this energy of previously it feels like being very unaware of kind of these shortcomings, or unwilling to sort of look at these things very directly within themselves. So let's get some guidance from Spirit about the situation, and then I'll get some message cards and close the reading out with some initials. Okay, we have integrity. Drop the things that offend your soul. Embrace your truth. It's your life. Let no one live it for you. So this can definitely be encouragement for you to also start to look kind of deeply. It feels like specifically into ancestral patterns and ways in which maybe even self-talk or the impression that you've had of kind of your strengths and your deficits. How is this really reflective of your true potential versus it's just a narrative that's kind of been passed along that you've inherited from other people, both in your capacity to kind of view yourself as a lovable individual, the love that you give to yourself, the love that you allow yourself to receive from others. It feels like all of that goes far beyond just flaws within the programming of an individual, that this person is kind of stepping beyond that threshold, back in time, back into the lineage, looking at kind of even the nature of interpersonal relationships within sort of the family dynamic, or the ways in which family members kind of relate to others in romance, or relate to one another. All of that kind of from the lens to get sort of clues and cues about sort of what is fractured within this that they've kind of taken into themselves as a way that determines what love means to them. And so this is something that can also be very beneficial for you to do if you're not already kind of working through some ancestral kind of wounds or trauma. You're not that already kind of considering yourself that generational curse breaker. Now might be the time to start to really become proactive in that, or put your full focus onto that, because it feels to be something that for where this person is sort of focused at this point in time, and if you have this interest in kind of realigning with them, or taking the situation beyond the no contact into something that is like a progressive and productive way of interacting with one another, then it really is kind of the benefit to the both of you to not just sort of look at what do I need to work on within me, but kind of what am I sort of carrying around that's a load I didn't ask for and nevertheless was kind of given to me by all these previous people who may not have even been aware that they needed to deal with anything, or avoided things outright, kind of tracing that path and that pattern further back than just sort of one's own individual experience in the here and now. Feels to be something that can be a way to kind of help yourself, and also sort of feed into the helpfulness of what can happen between you and this person further down the road, or kind of as they resurface, or as things progress between the two of you, so that you're kind of geared in the same direction. You're moving towards that same kind of goal within yourselves, which can help you sync up in a more healthy manner as well with one another. So let's see what they would tell you from their higher self if they could. Okay, and they say, I'm overcoming my fears. So again, this ties into that idea of things within themselves they've been afraid to look at, holding on to your energy, or even kind of like things you've said, things that you're putting out there on social media, things that they're hearing about you, or kind of finding out about you, as far as, even if they don't have exact details, just a sense of like evolution, progression, a strengthening of your energy, vitality, empowerment, all of those things. It's something that is really inspirational for this person as well. They're taking notes, they're following your lead, they're liking the direction that you are heading in that regard and capacity. It's very inspirational for them to start to really face and address these things that it feels like, aside from this connection, these are things that might have created difficulties in other interpersonal relationships, or had created a lot of disconnect in terms of their ability to have a healthy and kind of harmonious relationship with themselves, despite any kind of ups and downs that may occur or may have occurred in the past. They also say, I'm trying to figure things out. So more of that confirmation that this person is being very proactive in terms of learning the nature of certain patterns, things that have shown up in their life, ways in which they've shown up for themselves, for other people, for you, for love in general, have allowed those things to show up for them in return. And there's a sense of trying to sort of map out a new strategy, learning kind of what are the trigger points, what are the unconscious beliefs, what's the nature of what exists within my subconscious or my psyche or my shadow? What do I not like about these things, and how can I kind of reprogram that? How can I rewrite the code into something that's healthier, or more of a reflection of like who I am authentically, or who I'd like to be moving forward into the future? They also say, you will always be my secret love. So this can also be a confirmation that even though it's like out of sight, out of mind, they have a lot of love for you. They're trying to become a more stable or self-accepting, authentic, kind of relevant in the current time and space version of themselves, rather than kind of just acting out historical wounds or patterns or things that have kind of been templated within them. And so it feels like until they reach some sort of point of success in terms of whatever it is that they're endeavoring, able to sort of face their own reflection without flinching, without running, kind of extending that period of time into which that's possible, it feels like they'll hold back from anything very in depth in terms of their demonstrations towards you, or like that deep heart-to-heart conversation, because there's a sense of valuing kind of that next point of intensity or deep intimacy between the two of you, sort of taking the time to invest in themselves so that they aren't just running at the first kind of sign of trouble within themselves. If it gets too vulnerable, too deep, and then they take off in the other direction, they understand that that might be a tendency. They could be kind of an avoidant when it comes to intimacy and love and partnership. And so it feels like something they're trying to understand. What's the genesis of this? Where is this originating from, beyond just kind of themselves as like a fractured or flawed person? Who taught them that? Who sort of passed that along, and how can they rid themselves of that belief system or those kind of coping mechanisms, or those almost like what have become instincts? There's a sense of them understanding that these things can all be changed, or they're putting a lot of focus in endeavoring to kind of rewrite the nature of that for themselves, and then also in terms of like for how they can show up for you and for other people in their lives in a more wholesome and consistent manner than has been the case in the past. And they also say, I just need more time. So again, kind of this energy of holding back on sort of that deep heart-to-heart conversation, but using this time apart very wisely to think, to introspect, to look at some uncomfortable truths, anything that's been triggered or has surfaced for them, even sort of brought on through circumstances unrelated to what you've been dealing with one another, maybe even like things that have come up through, like PTSD, any ways they're trying to deal with that, any kind of like flashbacks or memories that are coming up. Feels like this person is trying to sort of extend the period of time in which they can sit with that and not just run right into the coping mechanism of like numbing that out or avoiding it or making excuses or pushing it away. So they're trying to kind of create more of a space within themselves where there's less tension and more allowance, which it feels like is sort of part of their strategy to be able to kind of give more and receive more with you as well. And they also say you are hard to forget. So they've taken things that you have said to heart. Definitely a confirmation of like watching you from afar, thinking about you, a lot of nostalgia with this. This is definitely not an out of sight, out of mind situation, but something where they're looking to you, or like your essence, your energy, what you're about, what you're focused on, is something that they want to be vibrating and living and experiencing life on that level as well. And they also say, we will be together again. So there's that confirmation. They do not intend to remain at a distance from you. They do not intend to remain disconnected from you. It's through kind of the passageway within themselves, deeply within the nature of their own emotional seas, that they have avoided up to this point in time, is the way in which it feels like they have decided is sort of the best route to take to reach something deeply within themselves, to be able to give more to you in kind. So these initials can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got R, M, R, N, L, N, I, G, S, B, E, B, F, T, Q, M, V, and C. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. Like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. Chose the purple fluorite. So let's start by taking a look at the person that you are watching this video for, that you are in a no contact situation with. What are their thoughts and feelings about you and the connection at this time? Okay, we have 4th chakra, Archangel Raphael. 2nd chakra, Archangel Ariel. And Yin Yang. So it feels like this person has reflected a lot about the connection, about their feelings, feelings that they might have muted or held back in expressing in the past due to some kind of heart chakra blockage, fears of getting hurt in love again, that could have stemmed from disappointments in love in their past, that you have kind of served as some sort of catalyst or instigator for them to start to break down those walls and barriers internally, in order to bring the best of themselves to the forefront, to be able to give with you in a healthy and reciprocal manner. This is somebody, it feels like, who is building up the courage, the strength, the stamina, coming up with creative solutions to bypass some gatekeepers within that heart space that has caused them to recoil from this connection, recoil from you, kind of leave the block and the barrier of silence between the two of you firmly in place, or to put that in place if that was their doing. There's a sense of them not being happy away from you, or starting to recognize that you have actually changed their life for the better, in terms of stirring something that they thought might have been kind of dormant or expired within them, the capacity to experience love, feel something on that emotional level, that due to some kind of profound heartbreak in the past, they could have just shut everything down. This could be somebody that had sort of vowed to just be a perpetual bachelor, perpetual bachelorette, no strings attached, not get too tied down to anyone, and they caught feelings for you, deep and intense feelings, and it feels like something that they're reflecting on the nature of that it wasn't that this connection was too much, it's that they almost were not prepared or not allowing themselves to experience the intensity of what it feels like they're equating to be a very healthy and healing experience of loving you and being loved by you. They may definitely view you as like their soulmate, a counterpart, kindred spirit, past life love kind of energy that both challenges them and inspires them to sort of overcome blocks and deficits within that have compromised their ability to even understand what love is in a healthy and high vibrational manner. So there's a yearning, it feels like, to continue to dig themselves out from wherever they've kind of closed away within, to bring more of themselves to the forefront, it feels like, in how they're showing up in their life in general, as a way to kind of prepare themselves for some sort of reemergence in your life, moving in closer, or even declaring, perhaps for the first time, the nature of those deep and intense and at times perplexing feelings that they have for you. So let's look at some blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they are dealing with at this time. Okay, so we have Lady, Goddess, Feminine, Maiden, Balance, and Witch's Cottage, Security. So there's definitely a sense of heartbreaks from the past, maybe divorce that this person's gone through, or long-term connection that fell apart. The rug got pulled out from under them, maybe even some aspects of codependency that had been going on in their past, that they are terrified of repeating that same circumstance, building things up again just to watch it all wash away, a fear of opening up and being vulnerable and allowing themselves to receive the love that you have to give. And it feels like to give that in kind as well, because there's a sense of almost like you bring a lot of balance to them, kind of with this other aspect of the yin yang energy here. And it's almost this sense of kind of like, is this too good to be true? Is this something that's just going to be history repeating itself once again? Or is this kind of the love that all of that disappointment in the past had prepared me for, kind of acclimated my palate to the experience of what love is not, in order to be able to fully receive and experience what love is, or what it should be, what it truly can be, in like its highest potential. So there's a sense here of this person working through, not also as well kind of comparing the situation with you with things that might have happened in the past. There may be a lot of similarities in kind of the way in which the two of you have met one another, the space that this person was in their life when the two of you connected, or even just aspects of you or the nature of the dynamic that could feel either very similar to what had led to heartbreak in the past, which could be kind of touching on that nerve ending or that wound that says, I'm afraid of this ending up like that other circumstance ended up like, and whatever was involved in kind of needing to pick up their pieces from that. There's an interest in wanting to avoid whatever that looked like replicating itself. Work that this person has put in to sort of rebuild or move away from that version of themselves, or whatever was going on kind of when the worst experience in their life romantically happened. And there's an understanding, though, that they can't compare the situation with you or the experiences that you have with one another or who you are as a person with whoever they were dealing with in the past. Whatever that was is separate from whatever this is. And so it feels like something that they're very consciously aware of, kind of not making you make up for or holding you responsible for kind of deficits within others who were not able to love them properly, who were not able to kind of accept this person or showed this person broken love as opposed to, healthy and nurturing and supportive love. There's also an essence here kind of another version of this energy can be kind of that you are so different from anything that they have experienced before that there's almost kind of a questioning, like, is this safe? Is this too good to be true? It feels like what I've needed. It feels like what I've wanted that I was unable to find or successfully sustain or maintain with other people. And there's a sense of like, are you a dream come true? Is this an illusion? If I, fully invest in this or trust in this or open my heart fully to you and the experiences of the two of us together, am I just going to be let down in a very kind of painful and brutal manner? Which it feels like they're also aware of that you in some way represent a wish fulfillment, not just who you are, what you bring to the table, but what you generate inside of this person in terms of love as a force of empowerment, or themselves kind of holding themselves in a space of, I am lovable, the love that I have to give is high quality, it's valuable, it's something of worth, rather than kind of something that another person should settle for, or I should be grateful that they're allowing me into their life, that they want what it is that I have to give emotionally. It almost feels that you provide a very different energy for this individual, or you've provided a very different experience in the past that might have fallen so into that category of otherness that it almost triggered them to sort of run or shut down or pull away from you out of like a fear of the unknown. But it feels that they're very aware of that and trying to sort of find a way to kind of pick the lock from within themselves, or they've kind of closed off their heart, or where it's kind of been shut in the aftermath of disappointments in their past, so that they can move into more of a space of reciprocity and trust in the nature of what the two of you have with one another, what you've had up to this point, what's possible to generate or rebuild between the two of you in the future as well. So let's take a look at their possible actions towards you. We have solitude, happiness, and enlightenment. So this energy of solitude, this figure kind of on the rowboat, speaks to this person sort of making their way back to you slowly and steadily, maybe reaching out, or, if they're not making that actual contact yet, again, kind of chiseling away at whatever those boundaries or barriers are that they have in place. Sort of an energy of someone who might have been, closed off to love, or closed for spiritual or emotional maintenance. And now you've come along, you've come into their life, and there's a sense of, it's time to come out of hiding. It's time to open up and trust love, give love another chance, or even kind of greet love truly for the first time, which it feels like is something that they are very interested in moving toward a reconciliation with you, moving toward deepening your experience with one another. It feels like through some kind of disclosure that you bring them a level of happiness they have not known, that they almost were fearful of, or were mistrusting of prior to this, because it felt so different from what they've ever experienced before, or maybe even kind of giving you certain details or a peek or a glimpse into kind of the motivations for why they might have had sort of like muddy footprints left within their heart by people who, were maybe dealing with their own unprocessed shadows, or weren't a true vibrational match, or just kind of karmic connections, as opposed to, true kind of like soul bonds that they've experienced in the past, lessons that they had to learn in order to, again, sort of acclimate their palate to what love is not, in preparation for what love is, in preparation for the experience of you, this in the here and now. Something that they bring forth by way of giving you more of that perspective, more of that clarity, either in terms of so that you will give them grace and room to be able to sort of evolve into or expand into the space of allowing this love to develop, or to rekindle, or to flourish in a more sort of organic matter, or so that you will kind of have some more context as far as their motivations for the behaviors up to this point in time, or even just energetic mixed signals that they've been giving, anything that has kind of led to the shutdown or the disconnect, or this this can even kind of be the energy here in this group of something where maybe there's periods of time where you're like talking and then you're not talking. This could be somebody that's sort of like in and out, or even just energetically speaking. There may be times where they're very open versus times that they're very shut off. And this can all be the indicator of sort of providing you more clues or indicators, or just sort of direct realizations as far as what that is stemming from, that it's truly not you, it's something within them that they're trying to kind of break through in order to be able to move with the current, move with the flow, participate in a more reciprocal and consistent manner with you going forward. So let's get some guidance about this situation, and then I'll get some messages from this person's higher self, and then close the reading out with some initials. Okay, we have metamorphosis. Trust the process and be patient. Becoming cannot be rushed. Change is beautiful. So this is a confirmation that this situation, in whatever way no contact resonates with you, or whatever's happening in that distance, in that silence, energetically, if there's periods of like shutdown and where the person seems cold and distant and aloof, maybe that's happening literally, materially as well. And then you're kind of going back and forth between, having a lot of progress as far as that connection or exchange, and then times where you're feeling very alone in the situation. This is encouraging you to trust that everything is going through like a rebirth. This person is trying to break out of some cocoon where the best of them, where their heart, where their capacity to trust in love is like a safe place, or a force of something very constructive, healing, is taking place. And with that is kind of also the energy of anything that you might need to look into within yourself in terms of your hesitation, your guardedness, ways in which you might be have approached this person in the past, or even unconsciously are kind of looking toward love almost with the lens of leading from the place of what you want to avoid, the list of qualities and qualifications that you don't want to replicate in your life, sends out a vibration or a signal of almost like lack or difficulty, or just kind of stubborn, stuck frustration and stagnation. So this is kind of giving the indicator to move into more of a space of understanding what you've experienced in the past that was kind of negative, it was undesirable, trusting your sort of own inner wisdom enough to know if that is sort of in the process of repeating itself, and that you'll take action accordingly when and if that occurs, but to really shift the focus as far as this person is concerned, or even sort of the eyes with which you are looking toward the idea of love in general, more toward what you do want to experience, the positive qualities, the ways that things can be of betterment as opposed to things you want to avoid. All of that sort of sends out the current and the vibration of empowerment, to where you're inviting something in that is nourishing, as opposed to sending out that signal to the universe of all the things you're wanting to avoid, and then it just further increases kind of the likelihood that there'll either be sort of a lack of what's poured into you, or that more of kind of the elements of difficulty within the shadows, any wounding might be sort of the place of response at which the two of you, or kind of love in general in all of your interpersonal relationships, or even your relationship with yourself, that's what kind of surfaces, that's what sort of manifests. So this is encouraging to kind of like have hope for the future, trust wherever sort of you're at in this process, wherever this person's at in this process, understanding that they want forward momentum, they want something more in this situation, and it's sort of an element right now of them freeing themselves from some degree of like emotional prison that they've been in, or a place where they've been very kind of mistrusting. They've been very skeptical. They've been very afraid to fully trust in sort of this situation at face value, but it feels like they're working to move into more of that space of understanding that kind of this is here right now at this time in both of your lives as something that is meant to be beautiful, something that is meant to be healing, something that is meant to be uplifting, and kind of the antithesis of whatever it was that hurt or that was very broken before. And so, allowing that process to take place within them organically, but then also making sure that you're checking in with yourself and kind of doing yourself that same courtesy, that same work within yourself to be able to kind of get rid of anything that is kind of a leftover, that's a residue from situations with other people that hadn't worked out in the past, so that you're able to kind of face this, a new beginning, a next chapter, whatever develops further in this situation with fresh eyes, as opposed to kind of the skeptical eyes of whatever ways in which love had left you kind of jaded or hurt or wounded or damaged before. So let's see what this person wants you to know from their higher self. Okay, and they say, if I had only known then what I know now. So there's that confirmation that they are trying to loosen the grip that wounds from their past, from previous relationships, that had kind of jaded them as far as love is concerned, or had made them regret opening up to other people or allowing people into their heart, or had kind of left them with a sense that they were flawed, that they were broken, that they were difficult to love. All of those things that have been sort of barriers to the open and healthy exchange between the two of you. It feels like they're very proactively working to loosen the grip of these things and to start to kind of address this situation, address you, address themselves, with the energy of possibility and potential as being something beautiful, as opposed to something that they kind of have to be on guard as a gateway to incurring further damage emotionally. And they also say, I won't let you go. So even though there's distance, there's disconnect, it feels like this person is heavily invested in doing what they can to create creative solutions within themselves, first and foremost, to be able to be more comfortable with an exchange of emotional energy between the two of you, love between the two of you. And to be able to kind of bring forth something, almost like the best of them, it feels like, that had not been touched or tarnished even by their worst experiences in the past in love. There's like a secret chamber within their heart that nobody has been able to access, and it feels like they're giving serious consideration, and for a lot of you have reached that sort of decision that you are that person that is worthy, and that is trustworthy enough to kind of hold this sacred space within them, to embrace kind of that best, that pure love that they have within themselves. And so bringing that out from kind of wherever they've buried that within, sifting away at the rubble at this point in time, to be able to demonstrate that to you, to show that to you, and to also receive the equivalent of what you hold inside in that same sort of capacity, to them as well, like when and if you're ready and able and interested in kind of providing that for them. And they also say, I miss you more than you know. So they are not liking the distance. They're not liking the silence. This is someone who's very motivated to try and tunnel their way out of wherever they've kind of retreated, wherever they've hidden the best of themselves away out of fear of being hurt again, or kind of just whatever was able to be preserved or salvaged emotionally for them in the aftermath of what's fallen apart in their past. So this is somebody that's actively working to kind of address trust issues that they have, to be able to kind of look at you in this situation as something different than what they've known before, or even kind of the experiences with one another that might have been sort of confusing or wobbly or disappointing up to this point in time, to try and build in a direction where you're aiming for progress, not necessarily perfection, but it's an element of kind of, I want to give more to you than I have in the past. I want to be able to receive more from you than I have allowed myself to receive as well. And they also say, trust me. So again, they're making their way towards you kind of from the inside out, opening their heart, taking a cue from whatever's been stirred or activated within them in terms of that heart chakra activation, and leaning into that, seeing that as a point of strength. No matter what has happened in their emotional past, where vulnerability has kind of bitten them and they've been left in a wounded space where they've needed to pick up the pieces, they're really trying to look at you and this situation and to trust that you're the one they've been waiting for, the one that every disappointment has kind of been the preparation for the antithesis of, for something very beautiful, for something very nourishing, for something that, is authentic and healthy. So they're asking you to kind of have trust with them during this process of opening up and sort of keeping that heart space open. They also say my nerves get the best of me sometimes. So this feels like somebody who has some very deep feelings for you, a deep and intense love for you. And it's something that the nature and intensity of that might even scare them, in terms of that it's not just I'm opening my heart to love again, but this is next level love. This is like counterpart love. This is soulmate love. This is something that I didn't think was possible, or that I had wanted and hadn't been able to find, and therefore I just sort of settled for something else, or closed myself off and just sort of vowed to be alone rather than allowing myself to settle in other circumstances. So there's a deep emotional current and intensity that they understand exists between the two of you, that they understand exists within them for you, and that they're wanting to experience that same kind of vibration from you in kind. And they also say, I'm trying to figure things out. So they are mapping out a strategy towards you, mapping out a route from within themselves to be able to reach out to you, communicate with you, speak to you, offer any apologies or explanations that are owed from a place of depth that wasn't accessible for them before, or that they hadn't brought forth to the table up to this point in time. So this can be somebody who's going to convey deeper feelings for you than they've let on, express feelings for the first time, or really kind of just go above and beyond to prove and to demonstrate to you that no matter what has happened in their past, no matter how much they've been hurt or the damage that has been done, that they're trusting the situation, they're trusting you, they're trusting the idea of a renewal of this circumstance, or building in a very productive direction with one another as something that is in their higher good, that it's in your higher good, that it's almost like destiny or fate that you've intersected with one another. This is not someone who wants to allow the opportunity with you to slip through their fingers, as someone that understands time is of the essence, and so it feels to be that they're very proactive in kind of finding a way to move beyond any sort of fears of being hurt in love or hurt in love again, to be able to kind of dive in deep and dive in completely with the experience with you moving forward. So these initials can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got P, U, W, V, A, G, O, L, N, E, D, I, S, P, F, M, and Q. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.